Welcome back, Lincoln currency. When you hold a 1981 1-cent coin in your hand, you are holding more than just a small copper disc with a face value of 1 cent. You are holding a piece of American monetary history, a coin that bridges two important eras of United States mint production. In 1981, the penny was still made of a 95% copper composition, with the remaining 5% consisting of zinc. Each coin weighed approximately 3.11 grams and had a diameter of 19 millimeters. This was a time when copper prices were starting to rise, and the mint was under pressure to reduce production costs, leading to a major composition change that would take effect the very next year in 1982. Because of this, the 1981 cent is part of the last full year of the traditional copper Lincoln cents, which makes it interesting not only to collectors but also to historians who study changes in metal usage and production economics. On the obverse side of the 1981 penny, you will see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This portrait had been in use since 1909, commemorating the centennial of Lincoln's birth, and it continues to appear on U.S. pennies today. Around Lincoln's portrait are the inscriptions, "In God We Trust." Along the upper rim, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1981, to the right. Depending on where the coin was minted, you may also see a small mint mark below the date, a D for Denver, an S for San Francisco proof issues, or no mint mark at all for coins minted in Philadelphia. The reverse side features the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. Above the memorial are the words, "United States of America," while the denomination, 1 cent, appears below. Between these inscriptions, just above the memorial, is the motto, "E pluribus unum." This design had been in use since 1959, replacing the earlier Whittier's design, and it carried subtle symbolic meaning. If you look closely, you can see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that not all casual observers noticed. In terms of minting numbers, 1981 was a massive production year. Philadelphia alone struck approximately 7.49 billion pennies. Denver produced around 5.37 billion, and San Francisco produced millions of proof coins for collectors. When you add these up, we're looking at over 12 billion coins from just the Philadelphia and Denver mints, plus proofs from San Francisco. Because of this extremely high mintage, the average 1981 penny is not rare in circulated condition. You could find one in pocket change today with little difficulty, and in worn condition it will still only be worth its face value, or perhaps a few cents to someone interested in copper melt value. However, the story does not end there, because certain 1981 cents have characteristics that make them worth far more than a single cent. First, let's discuss condition. As with all coins, condition is a critical factor in determining value. Coins are graded on a numerical scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition and sharper details. An average circulated 1981 penny might grade anywhere from good, G4, to extremely fine, EF40, and these coins typically carry little or no premium over face value. But in mint state, especially at grades MS65 or higher, the value can climb significantly. A Philadelphia 1981 penny graded MS65 read by a major grading service such as PCGS or NGC might sell for $10 to $20. In MS67 red, the price can jump into the hundreds, and extremely rare MS68 red examples have sold for over $3,000 at auction. Denver minted 1981 pennies show a similar pattern, with MS68 red coins commanding premium prices. These coins are valued not because of intrinsic metal content, but because of their condition rarity. So few coins survive with pristine surfaces, no bag marks, and full original luster. Then there are error coins. Errors and varieties can make an ordinary penny worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In 1981, there are known examples of double die obverse and double die reverse cents, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment in the die creation process. There are also repunched mint mark varieties for the 1981 D cents, where the D was punched more than once, creating overlapping impressions. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks are other types of errors that collectors seek. The value of these errors depends on the type and severity. A minor doubled die might be worth $20 to $50, while a dramatic off-center strike that leaves part of the design missing could be worth $100 or more. Exceptionally rare or dramatic errors have been known to fetch several $100s, even on a common date like 1981. Another point of interest for 1981 pennies is their metal content. Because they are made of 95% copper, they contain approximately 2.95 grams of copper. At times when copper prices rise, the intrinsic melt value of the coin can exceed 1 cent, though it remains illegal to melt pennies for profit in the United States. This intrinsic metal value has led many people to save pre-1982 pennies, including 1981s, in large quantities. They view them as a kind of small-scale copper investment, even though they cannot legally melt them down. This has created a sort of shadow market, where bags of copper pennies are traded at a small premium over face value. The year 1981 also holds a special place in U.S. mint history because it was just before the transition to a copper-plated zinc composition. In 1982, the mint began producing pennies with a core of 97.5% zinc and a thin plating of copper, reducing the weight to 2.5 grams. This change was driven by the rising cost of copper and the desire to keep production costs below the face value of the coin. In 1981, collectors had no way of knowing that they were holding the last full year of traditional copper cents. In hindsight, this makes the 1981 issue significant as the end of an era. While some rumors or claims circulate about astronomical values for certain 1981 pennies, numbers like hundreds of millions of dollars, these claims are not supported by any credible auction records or numismatic sources. The total mintage of 1981 cents is so enormous that even if you gathered every surviving coin, their total face value would be in the hundreds of millions, but no single coin is worth anywhere near that figure. The most valuable 1981 pennies are those that are in extraordinary condition or have dramatic errors, and these can sell for thousands at auction, but not hundreds of millions. Now, let's look deeper into the collector market. Over time, the demand for high-grade 1981 cents has been steady because they are part of Lincoln's cent registry sets. Registry set collectors aim to assemble the finest possible examples of each date and mint mark, graded and certified by a third-party service. In such competition, the price of a top-graded 1981 cent can skyrocket because there may be only a handful of coins graded at that top level. The same dynamic applies to proof coins from San Francisco. While most proof 1981 cents are worth only a few dollars, a perfect PR70 deep cameo example can be worth hundreds or more because of extreme scarcity at that grade. The fascination with the 1981 penny also extends to its role as a teaching tool in coin collecting. For beginners, it's an accessible coin, inexpensive in most grades, with plenty of examples to study for strike quality, mint marks, and errors. For advanced collectors, it offers the challenge of finding the finest examples or the most unusual varieties. It's also a reminder of how even the smallest denomination can have layers of history, economics, and artistry embedded in it. As we move deeper into the story of the 1981 1-cent coin, we need to step back and appreciate the history that made it what it is. The Lincoln Cent series began in 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than a symbolic representation like Liberty. The design was groundbreaking for its time and was immediately popular with the public. In 1959, the reverse design was changed from the wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial in honor of the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, a redesign executed by Frank Gasparo. This memorial reverse continued through 2008, meaning that the 1981 cent falls neatly in the middle of the memorial cent era. The memorial design itself is more than just an architectural depiction. When you examine the coin closely, you notice the careful detail, including the tiny seated figure of Lincoln inside the memorial. The design was meant to connect the obverse and reverse symbolically, with Lincoln's image appearing both on the front and within the structure on the back. This was a subtle artistic choice that most casual observers never see. The inscriptions, United States of America, and E pluribus unum, frame the building, emphasizing both national identity and the motto that means, out of many, one. Beneath the memorial, the simple denomination, 1 cent, reminds us of the coin's everyday purpose, even as collectors and historians view it as something much more than small change. The 1981 cents composition of 95% copper reflects the long tradition of using copper in U.S. small denomination coins. Copper was chosen for its durability, workability, and resistance to corrosion. However, by the late 1970s and early 1980s, the rising cost of copper began to challenge the economics of penny production. In fact, copper prices spiked to the point where the intrinsic value of the metal in a penny was approaching, or even exceeding 1 cent. The U.S. Mint and Treasury faced the problem of potentially losing money on every penny produced. This economic pressure is what ultimately led to the composition change in 1982, replacing the copper alloy with a much cheaper zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. In 1981, the Mint was still producing the traditional bronze composition, but the decision to change had already been set in motion. This is why 1981 is often considered a transition year in spirit if not in composition. Collectors often point out that all pre-1982 pennies, including the 1981 issues, contain about 2.95 grams of copper. When copper prices are high, these coins have a melt value above face value, though melting them remains illegal. This has led to the phenomenon of people hoarding copper pennies in the hope that someday they might be able to legally melt them for profit. Bags of 1981 and other copper cents can be found being traded informally among collectors and investors for a premium, often 1.5 to 2 times face value depending on copper prices. This is a niche market that operates on the belief that changes in regulation or market conditions could make copper coins more valuable in the future. Now let's explore the specific mintages and why they matter. In 1981, the Philadelphia Mint struck approximately 7.49 billion cents. These coins can be identified by the absence of a mint mark. The Denver Mint produced around 5.37 billion cents, each marked with a small d beneath the date. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors, with the S mint mark. These proof coins were made with specially prepared dies and planchets to produce sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. While the total mintage of proofs was far lower than circulation strikes, they were sold directly to collectors in sets, so their survival rate in high condition is much higher. Proof coins from this year are common, but top-graded examples, especially those graded PR70 Deep Cameo, can command impressive prices at auction because only a tiny fraction of coins are perfect enough to achieve that grade. Even though the total number of coins struck in 1981 was huge, not all coins are equal. A massive mintage means that the average coin is common, but it also means that finding a flawless example is like finding a needle in a haystack. Billions of coins were dumped into circulation, rattled around in bags, struck from worn dies, and handled in ways that caused marks, nicks, and wear. This is why mint state coins with superb color, no spots, and minimal marks are scarce. For serious Lincoln cent collectors, an MS-68 red 1981 cent is a prize because so few survive at that quality level. The rarity lies not in the date itself but in the condition. Errors from 1981 are another fascinating subject. The double die varieties are perhaps the most famous. In a double die, part of the design, such as the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile, appears double due to a misalignment when the die was made. While not as dramatic as the famous 1955 double die, the 1981 varieties are still collectible and can bring in solid premiums. Repunched mint marks are another common variety, particularly on the Denver issues. Before the mint switched to hubbed mint marks, the letter punches were sometimes applied more than once, slightly misaligned, creating overlapping impressions. Collectors carefully examine the area below the date to look for these anomalies. Other errors from 1981 include off-center strikes, where the coin design is not properly centered on the planchet, leaving part of the design missing. The degree of off-center strike can dramatically affect value. A coin that is 5% off-center may only be worth a small premium, but one that is 50% off-center with a full visible date can be worth $100 or more. Broad strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks are also found among 1981 cents. Each error tells a story about the minting process and adds to the fascination collectors have with even such a common date. Auction records for 1981 cents show that while most coins sell for modest amounts, the top quality pieces and dramatic errors can bring serious money. A Philadelphia 1981 cent graded MS-68 red has sold for over $3,000. A Denver 1981 D cent in MS-67 plus red has brought over $5,000. Proof 1981 S cents graded PR70 deep cameo have sold for several $100s. These prices reflect not rarity of the date, but the extreme scarcity of coins at the very highest grades. Collectors chasing registry set awards are willing to pay strong prices to secure the finest examples. The discussion of 1981 cents sometimes veers into myths and exaggerated claims about value. It is important to ground these discussions in reality. No single 1981 cent has ever sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. The idea of a $543 million penny is a misunderstanding or a misrepresentation, perhaps confusing total mintage value or speculative claims about future value. The highest known prices for any 1981 cent are in the thousands, not millions. However, the fact that a coin with a face value of 1 cent can sell for thousands shows how condition, rarity and grade, and collector demand can transform even the most common of coins into a valuable collectible. The 1981 cent also plays an educational role in understanding U.S. coinage policy. The transition in 1982 from copper to copper-plated zinc was a direct result of cost analysis. Producing billions of pennies at a loss each year was not sustainable. By reducing the copper content, the mint was able to lower production costs, though today even zinc cents cost more to produce than their face value. This has led to ongoing debates about whether the penny should be eliminated entirely. For collectors, this only adds to the appeal of earlier copper cents, as they represent an era of higher intrinsic value and traditional minting practices. The role of the 1981 cent in popular collecting culture is also significant. Many collectors start their journey by filling Lincoln cent albums. Finding a bright red 1981 cent to fill the slot is a small thrill for a beginner. More advanced collectors may search for the perfect example with blazing luster and sharp strike. Dealers often have rolls of 1981 cents in original bank wrapping, saved by people who recognize the year's significance as the last full copper year. These rolls can be searched for high-grade coins or varieties, making them popular among hobbyists. As we go deeper into the story of the 1981 1-cent coin, we begin to see it not just as a date on a small copper disc, but as a snapshot of an economic moment in the United States, a transition point in both metallurgy and public perception of small change. By 1981, inflation had been an ongoing issue through the 1970s, and the purchasing power of a penny had fallen dramatically compared to earlier decades. What a penny could buy in the 1950s or even the early 1960s was far more than what it could buy in 1981. Yet, the mint continued to produce billions of these coins annually, because the penny still had a role in commerce, rounding, and tradition. At the same time, the economics of making the penny were under increasing pressure. The cost of copper was not a fixed number. It moved according to global supply, industrial demand, and geopolitical factors. In the late 1970s, copper prices spiked, prompting the mint to experiment with alternative materials. There were test strikes of aluminum cents in 1974 and even experimental copper-plated zinc coins before 1982. The decision to keep the traditional copper composition through 1981 was a combination of logistical planning, public acceptance, and technical preparation. In 1982, the official switch to a copper-plated zinc planchet was made, but 1981 coins represent the last uninterrupted year of copper alloy in full circulation production. The weight of the 1981 cent, at 3.11 grams, is an important identifying factor. This weight is consistent with copper alloy cents from 1909 through most of 1982. By comparison, the zinc cents that followed weighed only 2.5 grams. Collectors sometimes use this weight difference to quickly separate copper and zinc cents, especially from the transitional year of 1982 when both compositions were used. A simple digital scale can tell you instantly whether you are holding a copper cent or a later zinc issue. In the case of 1981, all standard circulation strikes are copper, so the weight is a reliable characteristic. In terms of design details, the 1981 cent is a continuation of long-running artistry. Victor David Brenner's obverse portrait of Lincoln is simple yet powerful. Lincoln faces to the right, his profile instantly recognizable. The lettering, "In God We Trust," arcs above his head, a motto introduced on coins in the 19th century and placed prominently on the Lincoln cent since its debut. The word "Liberty" sits to Lincoln's left, a reminder of the values he stood for, while the date, 1981, appears to his right. Depending on the mint, a small mint mark may appear just below the date. The reverse by Frank Gasparo captures the Lincoln Memorial with impressive detail for such a small surface area. Careful engravers ensured that even the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial was visible under magnification, a subtle nod to continuity between the obverse and reverse. Collectors often talk about the color of copper coins. Grading services like PCGS and NGC classify copper coins as brown, BN, red-brown, RB, or red RD, depending on how much original mint red luster remains. A 1981 cent fresh from a roll may have full bright red surfaces, qualifying as RD. Over time, copper tones down to a mellow brown, sometimes with shades of orange, violet, or deep chocolate. Coins with full red color are far rarer in high grade because copper is reactive and tends to darken over time. For 1981 cents, an MS-67 or MS-68 red is a top prize because of the difficulty of finding a coin that has survived decades without spots, toning, or marks. The market for 1981 cents in high grades is driven in part by registry set competition. Registry sets are collections of coins graded and certified by third-party grading services, ranked against other collectors' sets. In such competitions, owning the finest known example of a particular date and mint mark can significantly boost a set's ranking. This creates intense demand for top-graded coins. For example, a 1981 D cent in MS-68 red might be one of only a few dozen in existence, pushing its price to thousands of dollars. Even though the date is common in lower grades, condition rarity at the top drives these impressive auction results. When discussing valuable 1981 cents, we cannot overlook the proof coins from San Francisco. These were not intended for circulation. They were struck with specially prepared dies on polished planchets, resulting in sharp details and mirrored fields. Proof 1981 cents are common in typical proof grades, but in perfect PR70 deep cameo, they are rare. Grading is unforgiving at this level. Even a microscopic imperfection can drop the grade. For collectors seeking perfection, a 1981 SPR70 deep cameo can command hundreds of dollars because so few exist. Errors and varieties continue to fascinate collectors. A dramatic off-center strike from 1981 can show half the coin blank with the other half displaying part of Lincoln's portrait. Such a piece is instantly eye-catching and worth much more than face value. Doubled dies, where letters or numbers appear doubled, can be more subtle but are equally interesting. Repunched mint marks from Denver show tiny secondary impressions of the D at various angles. Even more minor varieties, like small die cracks or chips, are collected by specialists who catalog each die variety in detail. Auction records for 1981 cents show a pattern that is consistent. Common coins in circulated condition bring only nominal amounts, but the finest known pieces set records. A Philadelphia 1981 cent graded MS-68 red might sell for $3,000. A Denver 1981 D cent in MS-67 plus red could bring $5,000. Proof 1981 cents in PR70 deep cameo can sell for $300 to $500 or more depending on demand. These prices demonstrate the collector principle that rarity in grade, not date, drives value for common date coins. Beyond the collector market, the 1981 cent holds a place in the broader discussion of the future of the penny. With production costs exceeding face value, debates have emerged about whether the penny should be discontinued. Canada has already eliminated its penny, rounding cash transactions to the nearest 5 cents. If the US were to follow suit, the final year of penny production could become a historic marker. In that scenario, copper cents like those from 1981 might see increased collector and investor interest as relics of a discontinued denomination. For many people, the 1981 cent is not rare or exotic, yet it connects to powerful themes: the end of an era for copper coinage, the economics of small change, the artistry of American coin design, and the enduring public affection for the Lincoln cent. Whether pulled from circulation, found in a roll, or purchased at auction in a high grade, each 1981 cent carries with it a piece of this story. As we continue exploring the world of the 1981 1-cent coin, it's worth looking at how individual examples have captured collector attention and brought surprising sums at auction. While most 1981 cents are common, certain standout specimens have earned legendary status within the community. One such example is a 1981 D Lincoln cent graded MS-68 red by PCGS that sold at a major auction for more than $5,000. What makes a single coin worth thousands while its identical date counterparts might be worth only a cent? The answer lies in perfection, rarity at the top, and collector competition. In a sea of billions, very few coins survive with flawless surfaces, vibrant color, and razor-sharp detail. Another famous sale involved a Philadelphia minted 1981 cent graded MS-68 red, which realized over $3,000 at auction. This coin stood out because of its blazing original red color, pristine surfaces, and perfect strike. These high-grade examples serve as benchmarks for the date and inspire other collectors to search rolls, bags, and old collections for coins that might achieve similar grades. Era coins from 1981 also tell fascinating stories. Consider an off-center strike where nearly half the planchet is blank, yet the date and Lincoln's portrait are fully visible. Such a coin immediately draws interest because it shows an extreme deviation from normal minting. Depending on the degree of the error and the visibility of key elements like the date, such pieces can bring hundreds of dollars. Double die obverse, though more subtle, are prized by variety collectors. These coins might show slight doubling on the date, the word liberty, or I in God we trust. While the doubling on 1981 cents is not as dramatic as on some earlier famous doubled dies, collectors still pay premiums for certified examples. Then there are the repunched mint mark varieties from Denver. Before the mint switched to hubbed mint marks in the late 1980s, mint marks were hand-punched into dies. Sometimes the punch was applied more than once, resulting in overlapping impressions of the D. In 1981, several such repunched mint marks are known. Specialists carefully catalog these, assigning them variety numbers and studying minute differences. While these coins may sell for modest amounts compared to spectacular errors, they hold strong appeal within the variety collecting community. Beyond individual coins, the 1981 cent is part of a larger phenomenon, the hoarding of copper cents. Because each pre-1982 cent contains about 2.95 grams of copper, its melt value often exceeds 1 cent when copper prices are high. Though it is currently illegal to melt pennies for their metal, some people accumulate large quantities in anticipation of potential future changes to the law. Bags of 1981 and earlier cents are sold by weight, sometimes at 1.5 to 2 times face value, reflecting the metal content. In this way, 1981 cents are seen not just as collectibles, but as a kind of speculative commodity. The copper hoarding movement has created a quiet but persistent market for 1981 cents in bulk. Some investors use coin sorting machines to separate copper cents from later zinc issues, then store them in buckets or bags. The year 1981 is particularly desirable because all cents from that year are copper, eliminating the need to check composition as in the transitional year 1982. Over time, if regulations change or if copper prices rise dramatically, these hoards could become more valuable. While speculation and metal value are interesting, the true long-term value of 1981 cents lies in collector demand. The Lincoln Cent series is one of the most collected coin series in the world. Millions of people have started coin collecting by filling a Lincoln Cent album. As new collectors join the hobby, demand for high-quality coins, interesting varieties, and historic issues remain steady. Even a common date like 1981 can have significant value in exceptional condition because there are always collectors seeking the best examples for their sets. The myths about extreme valuations, such as claims of a $543 million penny, tend to arise from misunderstandings or sensationalized media stories. In reality, number 1981 cent has ever sold for anywhere near that amount. The most valuable examples are high-grade or error coins that have sold for thousands. However, these exaggerated stories do serve one purpose: they keep public interest alive. When people hear about a coin supposedly worth millions, they check their change. While they may not find a multi-million-dollar coin, they might discover a valuable error, a rare date, or simply develop an interest in coin collecting. In this way, the legend of huge values keeps the hobby vibrant. At the same time, it's important to remember that the sentimental and historical value of a coin can be just as meaningful as its market value. A 1981 cent found in pocket change might be worth only face value, but for someone who remembers that year vividly, the coin can serve as a tangible link to the past. Coins are miniature time capsules, circulating through countless hands, witnessing decades of everyday life. A single cent may have traveled across the country, passed through the hands of millions, and survived countless changes in economy and society. The market for 1981 cents today reflects a balance of factors: massive overall mintage, scarcity in the highest grades, collector interest in varieties and errors, and the underlying value of copper. This balance keeps the coin interesting for both new and experienced collectors. Whether in rolls, proof sets, or high-grade slabs, the 1981 cent remains a staple of the Lincoln series and a coin that offers opportunities for discovery. As we continue on the journey of the 1981 1-cent coin, it becomes clear that the story is not just about a small copper disc but about a shift in American coinage philosophy, economics, and public sentiment toward the lowest denomination of U.S. currency. By 1981, the debate over whether the penny should continue had already been circulating in economic circles, but tradition and practicality kept it alive. For coin collectors and numismatists, this year holds a special place because it represents the last full year of the classic copper composition before the dramatic change in 1982. When we compare the 1981 cent to earlier years in the series, we see the mintage numbers are very high, which at first suggests commonality. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions, the Denver Mint produced even more, and the San Francisco Mint issued proof coins intended for collectors. These massive mintages mean the coin is easily found in circulation, yet when we isolate condition and specific varieties, the scarcity begins to appear. Coins that have survived without even the faintest contact mark, without a single spot of toning, and with their original red copper luster intact are rare jewels hidden among countless ordinary examples. For those who study the copper composition itself, the 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc alloy has a distinct feel and sound compared to the later copper-plated zinc coins. A copper cent has a solid ring when dropped, whereas a zinc cent has a duller, lighter sound. Collectors sometimes test coins by sound, weight, and even the way they look under light to separate compositions. The copper surface of a 1981 cent tends to age more gracefully, developing deep, rich patinas over time. Zinc coins, in contrast, are notorious for developing unsightly corrosion and pitting when exposed to moisture. The decision to change the composition in 1982 was driven by cost, and looking back, it's clear that 1981 sits on the threshold of that transition. The Mint was already preparing for the switch by adjusting equipment and testing plating techniques. But the 1981 cent remained faithful to the older standard, a sort of last hurrah for the traditional copper alloy in general circulation. For this reason, 1981 is often grouped with 1980 and earlier as part of the copper era, while 1982 is treated as the dividing line between old and new. Collectors who build sets of Lincoln cents often choose 1981 as a benchmark year. For some, it's a nostalgic choice, as they remember finding these coins and change during their youth. For others, it's strategic, as they know that high-grade 1981 coins can be sleepers in the market. While they don't have the immediate appeal of a key date like 1909 SVDB or 1914D, they represent a condition rarity that can quietly increase in value over time as pristine examples become harder to find. Proof coins from 1981 offer another layer of interest. The 1981S proofs were struck with great care, but they also mark the last year of the Type 1S mint mark before the introduction of the clearer, sharper Type 2S later that year. This change in mint mark style creates a subtle variety that collectors enjoy hunting. Type 2 proof coins in perfect PR70 deep cameo grades are particularly desirable because they represent technical perfection at a moment of transition. For a series that many take for granted, these small details become a way to tell a deeper story. Copper penny investment strategies sometimes use 1981 cents as a cornerstone. Because the year is free from zinc contamination, investors can accumulate bags without worrying about composition. They know that if melting restrictions are ever lifted, these coins will have intrinsic metal value far above face value. While it's unlikely that anyone will cash in for hundreds of millions of dollars from a single coin, the combined value of large hoards can be significant. Some individuals quietly hold hundreds of thousands of pre-1982 cents, storing them in heavy barrels, bags, and boxes, each 1981 cent playing its part in a larger copper portfolio. Comparing 1981 to other late copper years like 1979 and 1980, we see similarities in mintage and general design, but each year has its own small quirks. Differences in strike quality, die polish, and production volume create subtle distinctions that experienced collectors can detect. In 1981, some coins have slightly stronger strikes than others, with sharper details in Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial columns. Coins with exceptional strikes are favored by graders and collectors because they stand out under magnification. The psychological appeal of coins like the 1981 cent comes from the idea that something ordinary can hold hidden value. Everyone has seen a 1981 cent, and most people overlook it, assuming it's worth only a penny. Yet, hidden among the billions are the rare condition examples, the striking errors, the special varieties that command real money. This creates a treasure hunt feeling that keeps collectors searching. Roll hunting, where collectors search through bank rolls of pennies, remains popular because it's inexpensive and accessible. A lucky find of a pristine 1981 cent or a dramatic error can be thrilling. As we stand back and look at the bigger picture, the 1981 1-cent coin is more than just the last year of full copper before the change. It's a link between past and future, between the penny's origins in the early 20th century and its uncertain role in the 21st. For collectors, investors, and historians, it is a reminder that even the smallest denomination can carry weight far beyond its face value. Whether as part of a collection, a copper hoard, or simply a personal keepsake, the 1981 cent continues to circulate in our economy and our imagination. Continuing the exploration of the 1981 1-cent coin, we turn our attention to the stories that give certain individual coins almost legendary status among collectors. Auctions over the years have revealed that even in a sea of billions of coins, the very best examples can command eye-opening prices. One such example is a 1981 D Lincoln cent that achieved the grade of MS-68 read by PCGS, selling for over $5,000. This was not simply luck. It was the result of exceptional preservation, flawless surfaces, and perfectly preserved red copper luster that made the coin stand apart from the millions of average examples. In the Philadelphia Mint's output for the year, another MS-68 red example has surfaced and crossed the auction block for over $3,000. These prices make sense when you understand the concept of condition rarity. Out of hundreds of millions of coins, perhaps only a few dozen survive at this elite level. The vast majority, even those that look bright and shiny in change, fall far short under magnification because of microscopic contact marks or slight discolorations. For those few that meet the strict grading standards, demand is fierce. Error coins from 1981 further expand the intrigue. While the minting process was highly mechanized by this time, mistakes still slip through. Off-center strikes where the design is noticeably shifted, broad strikes without rims, and double strikes all make their way into collector hands and can bring strong prices. particularly dramatic errors, such as an off-center strike where Lincoln's portrait is perfectly visible along with a clear date, can sell for hundreds. These coins serve as reminders that even in an era of precision, human and mechanical errors create collectible anomalies. Varieties also form an important part of the 1981 story. Repunched mint marks at the Denver Mint are a favorite among specialists. Because mint marks were still added by hand at this time, the possibility of slight misalignment or double punching existed. Collectors catalog these with variety numbers, carefully photographing each subtle shift or doubling. While these varieties may not fetch thousands of dollars, they carry premium value to the dedicated variety collector. The proof coins of 1981 deserve special recognition as well. The San Francisco Mint produced high-quality proofs with mirror-like fields and frosted devices. Within these proofs lies a subtle but important difference: the change from Type 1S mint mark to Type 2. The Type 1S has a less sharp appearance, while the Type 2S is cleaner and more refined. The Type 2 proofs, particularly in perfect PR70 deep cameo grades, are especially coveted. For proof collectors, 1981 is a key year because it marks the final run of proofs before the composition change, adding another layer of significance. In the broader numismatic community, the 1981 cent plays a role in education. Coin clubs, grading seminars, and collector workshops often use 1981 cents to teach beginners about mint luster, die states, strike quality, and copper versus zinc composition. Because the coin is common yet has interesting high-grade challenges, it becomes a perfect teaching tool. Students of numismatics learn to examine a 1981 cent under magnification, noting details like die flow lines, tiny contact marks, and the color grading scale from red to red, brown to brown. Internationally, the Lincoln Cent series, including the 1981 issue, holds fascination for collectors outside the United States. Many foreign collectors view the Lincoln Cent as an enduring symbol of American coinage, and the fact that 1981 was the final full copper year gives it special appeal. Dealers at international coin shows often set aside high-quality 1981 cents for overseas buyers who appreciate both the design and the history. Meanwhile, the copper hoarding movement continues quietly. Bags of 1981 cents are sold by weight to investors who see potential in the metal. While the market fluctuates with copper prices and the legal status of melting cents, the underlying idea remains the same. Each 1981 cent contains copper worth more than its face value, making it a tangible asset in bulk form. This speculative angle keeps interest alive even among those who are not traditional collectors. Stories of extreme valuations like $543 million are of course exaggerated, yet they spark curiosity. People hear about these numbers, search through their change, and in the process sometimes stumble across truly valuable coins. The excitement of a treasure hunt, combined with the historical and economic context, keeps the 1981 cent relevant in public imagination. In essence, the 1981 1-cent coin exists at the intersection of mass production and individual rarity, of everyday commerce and collectible intrigue. Each coin carries the potential, however slim, to be something extraordinary. Whether through pristine preservation, mint error, or numismatic variety, the humble 1981 cent continues to inspire searches, studies, and investments. Its story is not finished, as every year new collectors discover its nuances and every auction reveals just how high demand can reach for the very best examples. Moving forward into the more advanced layers of the 1981 1-cent story, it is impossible to ignore the economic and strategic thinking that collectors and investors bring to the table when dealing with copper cents. The year 1981 sits as a cornerstone for copper accumulation because it was the final uninterrupted year of the 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc composition. Every coin from this year shares the same metal formula, which makes it far easier for those sorting pennies to keep full copper lots without worrying about composition transitions like in 1982. The economics of copper cents are fascinating. Each 1981 cent, at 3.11 grams, contains a quantity of copper that, depending on world copper prices, can sometimes be worth nearly twice face value. While melting cents remains illegal in the United States, This restriction has not dampened the appetite of certain investors who see copper coins as a long-term store of metal value. They operate quietly, buying bags and boxes of pre-1982 cents from banks, dealers, and even through private exchanges. Many of these hoards sit untouched for years, stacked in storage rooms, garages, or warehouses, each bag heavy with the promise of potential future profit. Roll hunting remains a popular entry point for collectors seeking valuable 1981 cents. Banks still distribute rolls filled with mixed dates, and for a small investment, hobbyists can search through hundreds of coins looking for pristine uncirculated examples, rare errors, or attractive toning. While most finds will be common circulated coins, the occasional high-grade 1981 cent with full red color and sharp strike can make the hours of searching worthwhile. Dedicated roll hunters often set aside any attractive 1981 examples, slowly building a stockpile of potential submissions for grading. Case studies from seasoned collectors reveal that patience is key. Some have spent years combing through bulk coins and dealer stock, setting aside only the finest pieces. Over time, these curated selections can become high-grade registry set contenders. One notable collector built an entire set of copper Lincoln cents from circulation finds, including several 1981 coins that graded MS-66 and MS-67 red at major grading services. These coins, while found for face value, ended up worth hundreds of dollars each in the collector market. The long-term market outlook for high-grade 1981 cents remains positive. While common circulated examples will likely always trade at face value, the very top end of the grading scale has limited supply. As more collectors compete in registry set programs offered by grading companies, demand for superb examples grows. Registry participants strive to have the highest graded coins in their sets, and when only a handful of coins exist in top population, prices can rise sharply during auctions. Beyond investment and collecting, the 1981 cent carries historical and emotional value. For many people, the early 1980s mark a distinct period in American life. The penny, unchanged in design but on the brink of a compositional transformation, becomes a physical reminder of that moment. When someone holds a 1981 cent, they are holding a piece of that era's everyday life, used in transactions at gas stations, diners, grocery stores, and vending machines. This connection to daily history gives the coin meaning far beyond its metal value or grade. The Lincoln cent series, of which the 1981 coin is a part, is also a cultural phenomenon. It is the longest-running coin design in U.S. history, introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. The reverse featuring the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, had been in use since 1959. By 1981, the design was well established and instantly recognizable to the public. For collectors, the 1981 cent represents a point deep into the memorial reverse era, just before the shift in composition that would later be followed by another major design change in 2009. Even in modern times, the 1981 cent continues to surface in conversations about the future of the penny itself. As debates arise over whether to discontinue the denomination due to production costs and reduced purchasing power, the copper-era pennies take on new nostalgia. They remind people of a time when a cent had more tangible buying power, and the coins themselves were made of metal with value beyond their face denomination. In essence, the 1981 1-cent coin's story weaves together threads of economics, history, design, investment, and human connection. It is not a rare coin in sheer numbers, but it is rich in significance. Whether tucked away in copper hoards, showcased in high-grade slabs, or simply sitting quietly in someone's change jar, each 1981 cent is a part of a much larger narrative, one that continues to evolve with every collector, every auction, and every roll searched in hopes of uncovering a hidden gem. As we progress deeper into the world of the 1981 1-cent coin, the conversation naturally turns toward the precise and often competitive realm of third-party grading. The role of professional grading services like PCGS and NGC in shaping the market for high-grade 1981 cents cannot be overstated. It is these services that assign the MS, PR, and other numerical grades that define the value tiers. While a raw, uncirculated 1981 cent may look beautiful to the naked eye, it is only when a coin is certified at MS-67 or MS-68 red that it reaches its true market potential. The population reports from grading services tell the real story. For the 1981 Philadelphia issue, there are thousands of coins in MS-65 and MS-66 red, but the numbers drop dramatically as you climb to MS-67 red. At MS-68 red, the population is often in the single digits. These tiny numbers at the top explain why auction prices can soar when a coin of this grade appears. The 1981 Denver issue has a slightly different profile, as Denver cents of the era tend to show stronger strikes and slightly better luster, but they are also prone to contact marks from heavy bagging. This makes truly pristine examples just as rare. The San Francisco proof coins tell their own grading story. The 1981 S proofs are plentiful in PR69 Deep Cameo, but PR70 Deep Cameo is far scarcer. For Type 2 S mint mark coins, the PR70 grade is even more elusive, creating a special challenge for proof specialists. These coins, when certified, often become centerpiece items in registry sets. Collectors in these competitive sets will sometimes pay premiums that seem surprising to casual observers, but to them, the addition of a perfect coin can mean a higher ranking and prestige among their peers. The grading process itself can be fascinating. Coins are examined under magnification with strong lighting, evaluated for strike sharpness, luster, surface preservation, and color. For copper coins like the 1981 cent, the color designation, red, red-brown, or brown, has a significant impact on value. A coin that retains its original red copper color is worth far more than one that has toned to brown. This is why careful storage is so important. Even a high-grade coin can lose value if it develops spots or dulls over time. Famous submissions over the years have set benchmarks for the 1981 issue. One well-known submission involved a small group of 1981 D cents that emerged from an original Federal Reserve Bank bag stored untouched for decades. Out of thousands of coins, only a handful graded at MS-68 red, instantly making them among the finest known. These coins entered the market and set price records, creating a ripple effect as other collectors searched for similar quality pieces. The market patterns for 1981 cents show a clear division. Average uncirculated coins remain affordable, with prices in the single digits for MS-65 red examples. But once you reach MS-67 and above, the price curve steepens dramatically. Auction archives reveal consistent competition for these coins, particularly when they are among the top populations. Registry set collectors track each other's acquisitions, and when a top coin appears, bidding can be fierce. For collectors who cannot afford top pop coins, the strategy often shifts to building quality sets with the best coins they can find in lower grades. An attractive MS-65 or MS-66 red can still be a beautiful coin, and for many collectors, the satisfaction comes from owning a complete set rather than competing for single record-setting pieces. The 1981 cent, whether in high or mid-grade, serves as an important component in these sets, symbolizing the end of the copper composition era. It is also worth noting that market demand for 1981 cents in high grade tends to increase when notable sales are publicized. A single record auction can inspire dozens of new submissions as collectors and dealers hope to discover their own high-grade examples. This cyclical effect keeps the 1981 cent in the grading conversation year after year. While the coin itself may be common in circulation, its high-grade survivors are perennially relevant in numismatic circles. For registry set competitors, owning a top pop 1981 cent is not just about value but also about prestige. It is a badge of accomplishment, a tangible mark that they have tracked down one of the finest examples in existence. In the often quiet world of coin collecting, these achievements carry weight, and the 1981 cent continues to be a coin where that pursuit of perfection can still produce excitement. The journey into the 1981 1-cent coin's significance becomes even more vivid when we step into the real stories of collectors who have devoted years, sometimes decades, to seeking out the finest examples. One collector in the Midwest began his search for 1981 cents in the early 1990s, long before the widespread use of online auctions. His method was patient and deliberate. He would attend local coin shows, talk to small-town dealers, and sift through thousands of coins, always with an eye for strong strike, perfect luster, and untouched red surfaces. Over 20 years, he assembled a complete run of Lincoln cents from circulation finds, but it was his 1981 D&MS 68 red that became the crown jewel, purchased directly from a dealer who had never submitted it for grading. When the coin finally crossed the grading floor, it achieved one of the top grades of the series and sold years later for an amount that astonished everyone involved. Another fascinating case involves a young collector who began her journey by roll hunting from her local bank. She would purchase $25 boxes of pennies, search through every coin, and set aside only those with the strongest eye appeal. Her focus was on post-1960 copper cents, particularly the last full copper year of 1981. Over the course of 2 years, she assembled a group of 1981 Philadelphia coins that showed exceptional quality for circulation finds. When submitted to a grading service, 2 coins returned as MS-67 red, an achievement almost unheard of from bank box searches. This story circulated among online collector forums, inspiring countless other hobbyists to try their own luck at finding treasures in ordinary rolls. Large dealers also play an important role in the market for 1981 cents. Many have access to original Federal Reserve bags or old hoards that have been stored away since the early 1980s. These bags sometimes contain coins that have remained untouched for decades, preserving surfaces in conditions far better than those seen in circulation. When these bags are opened, coins are carefully examined, and the very best are set aside for grading. Dealers understand that out of tens of thousands of coins, only a tiny fraction will make it into the top grades that command high premiums. The rest are sold in bulk to collectors, investors, or copper hoarders who are more concerned with the metal content than the numismatic potential. Educational exhibits at major coin shows often feature the 1981 cent as a teaching example. Its place at the end of the copper era makes it ideal for illustrating both composition changes and minting history. At events like the ANA World's Fair of Money, display cases show side-by-side examples of 1981 cents, transitional 1982 copper and zinc cents, and later issues. Visitors can see and feel the weight difference, examine the surface characteristics, and learn about the reasons for the compositional change. These exhibits help new collectors appreciate why a common date coin like the 1981 cent can carry such historical weight in numismatics. Museums also hold 1981 cents in their collections, often not because of rarity, but because of representation. A national coin collection is incomplete without examples of the final copper cents, and the 1981 issue naturally appears in such displays. The Smithsonian's National Numismatic Collection, for instance, contains 1981 cents in various grades, showing how the same coin can exist in circulation-worn form, in mint state, and in proof. These exhibits remind visitors that the coin's value is not just in money, but in its role as a cultural artifact. The 1981 cent continues to appear in academic papers and collector research as well. Specialists write detailed die studies, analyzing how many working dies were used at each mint and what changes occurred over the course of production. These studies reveal patterns in strike quality, die wear, and small varieties. They also document transitional features leading into 1982, making 1981 a reference year for Lincoln cent researchers. Even in casual collecting communities, the 1981 cent holds a certain magic. Social media groups and online forums often share photographs of freshly discovered 1981 cents and change or rolls, sometimes with brilliant luster despite the decades since mintage. These finds serve as motivation for others to check their own coins, adding a constant undercurrent of excitement to the hobby. The common thread through all of these stories, whether from seasoned professionals, ambitious young collectors, or institutions preserving history, is that the 1981 1-cent coin refuses to fade into obscurity. It sits quietly at the boundary of everyday currency and collectible significance, a coin that can still be found in the wild yet can also achieve remarkable prices in the right conditions. It is this dual nature, the blend of accessibility and rarity at the extremes, that keeps the 1981 cent in the spotlight year after year. The market for the 1981 1-cent coin thrives on psychology just as much as on rarity. Collectors, dealers, and investors are all human, and emotions drive many of the most dramatic moments in coin auctions. The 1981 cent, despite being common in most grades, has experienced intense bidding battles whenever an exceptional example comes to market. The psychology is simple. When there are only a few top-graded coins available, owning one becomes a matter of prestige and competition. Registry set collectors often talk about these coins in the same way art collectors discuss master paintings, pieces of perfection that define collections. Major auction houses have played a central role in shaping these values. Events at firms like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have repeatedly brought record-grade 1981 cents into the spotlight. Auction catalogs describe the coins in glowing detail, emphasizing their flawless surfaces, full red luster, and sharp strikes. When a top pop MS68 red or PR70 deep cameo 1981 cent is announced, anticipation builds for weeks. Collectors quietly study their budgets, strategize bidding plans, and watch the auction day approach with a mix of excitement and tension. One of the most famous auction moments involving a 1981 cent occurred when a Philadelphia minted MS68 red crossed the block at Heritage. The coin had been certified as one of the very finest known examples. With only a handful of similar coins in existence, the bidding escalated rapidly. What started at a modest opening bid quickly doubled, then tripled, as multiple registry collectors fought for ownership. The final hammer price astonished even veteran numismatists, setting a benchmark that would influence the pricing of all subsequent high-grade 1981 cents. Similarly, proof coins have had their share of dramatic moments. A 1981 S-Type 2 PR70 deep cameo once set a record when two proof specialists, each competing to complete a perfect proof set, bid aggressively against each other. The coin itself was beautiful, razor-sharp devices, deeply mirrored fields, and flawless surfaces, but its value was as much about its status in the registry race as about its physical perfection. When the auctioneer called the final bid, the room erupted in applause, a rare show of excitement in a hobby that is usually quiet and restrained. These high-profile sales ripple through the market. Collectors who witness such results often feel renewed motivation to search their own holdings or acquire raw coins for potential grading. Dealers take note of the prices realized and adjust their inventory pricing accordingly. Even casual collectors begin to view the 1981 cent in a new light, sometimes pulling them aside from circulation just in case they might hold hidden value. The psychology extends beyond the auction room. Online platforms like eBay, Proxibid, and Great Collections have made it possible for collectors around the world to participate in these events. A top-graded 1981 cent listed online can attract dozens of watchers and multiple bidders, many of whom are chasing the excitement of acquiring something that might not appear again for years. The fear of missing out, FOMO, becomes a real force in these transactions. Interestingly, these market surges also create waves of submissions to grading services. After a record sale, there is almost always an increase in 1981 cents being sent in for certification. While most will come back in lower grades, the small chance of hitting that top tier is enough to keep the submissions flowing. The grading services themselves track these trends and sometimes highlight them in newsletters or market updates, further fueling the interest. The cycle continues year after year. A rare example sells for a record price, the news spreads, more coins are searched and submitted, and the truly exceptional pieces rise to the top, ready for the next wave of competition. Through it all, the 1981 1 cent maintains its place as both an everyday coin and a numismatic prize, depending entirely on condition, rarity, and the determination of those who pursue perfection.